Welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio, your show for all things positive, with your host, Kirk Spencer. Hello and welcome to K-Wave 6 Radio. Today I'm doing a show that's just solos, just me, but I'm hoping that the topics that I bring up and the thoughts that I bring up will help you to understand and to view life a little differently if you don't already think this way. I do this on occasion because I just feel it's necessary to do that because, here on my show, I've brought guests in that are very positive. They found their place in life at an early age and they've made it a success. Or for those who have found, whether it was earlier or later or even very late in their life, some passion that has made them a success in this new passion once they got to the point of understanding, hey, it's me and I need to express myself, and other people are going, yeah, I've been looking for that. So these are the things that I like to do, which is the idea of, if you want to call it a subtitle, your show for all things positive. Today I'm going to talk about a lot of different things that are probably going to start out as a negative. So I'm just giving you that as a forewarning. But I'm also giving out a challenge to people to consider what this is and what it means to you, and if you're in part of these groups, what does it mean to you and what is it going to be for your future and the future of the world. I do that as talking about the future of the world because this is an internet program, so it's not limited to just one locale. So I do have listeners from all around the world, so I want to challenge you as a listener to consider at least some of the things that I'm talking about. And I can't cover everything that's going on in the world in an hour-long broadcast or shorter. I'm not sure how long this is going to last today, and I usually try to make them an hour long. This one might be shorter, it might be longer, I don't know, but I want to get all these thoughts out. So I want to start with, before I go there, I also want to challenge you to think about what it is, what does peace and hatred mean to you? Let me give an example. Many years ago, this was, 2003, so that was 11 years ago, I went to live in Wisconsin. Now, some of you may have heard this story before, but if you haven't, let me tell you this. I went to live in Wisconsin for a while. It was just a small city just due east of Minneapolis, St. Paul on Interstate 94. Small but very beautiful area, lakes and rolling hills and all that. A friend of mine from Chicago, where I was living at the time, had moved up there and was asking me to come up, and then we were talking about moving out to the state of Colorado because we had some friends over there. Making a longer story short, my friend said, well, we're going to leave when I get my vacation check, and that was going to be in 2 weeks. I said, not a problem. I've got money saved up. We can do that. Well, he dragged it out and said he wasn't going to leave until the following year. But in the meantime, I had spent money on food and just living there, so I went and got a job just to replenish the money that I had spent. While I was there at this particular job, I ran across a guy who was very nice when I started there. He was dressing normally. The only difference was he was a skinhead, shaved head, no beard, nothing, but he had tattoos on his face, his neck, his arms. Very pretty tattoos, but you could tell from the script, even before you read them, that they were basically of Germanic script, that type of the ancient, if you want to call it ancient or old style German writing or script. And under one eye he had a tattoo coming from his eye, the corner of his eye, outside corner of his eye, that was a teardrop, and inside the teardrop was the letters SS, like in the Nazi SS. And he came over and he spoke to me. Thought it was kind of different, but okay, fine. So we got to talking with the first day, and fine, went on from there. The next day he shows up. I'm sitting at my desk. He was working at a call center for a nonprofit organization. And I was sitting in my cubicle. I was looking over the top because we hadn't just started just yet. And I noticed he was wearing shorts, white shorts, black t-shirt, and on the t-shirt was a white swastika with, again, the old ancient style Germanic writing, white power. And I'm looking at this and going, didn't I talk to this guy yesterday? While I was standing there, there was a black guy that came in, and I'm assuming it was his first day. This was only my second day. He looked at this guy, stopped dead in his tracks, turned around and walked out, and never saw this guy again. However, I'm just like, okay, this guy spoke to me yesterday, so what's going on? He must have felt my looking at him. He must have felt me looking at him. And he turned around and he says, hey, don't worry about it, Kirk. I'll talk to you about it later. And I went, okay, no problem. I was just wondering. He says, no problem. So, still drawing this shorter, the office had a party, an office party, and they were going to have this office party on a Friday night in a restaurant in the downtown area. Well, we were off the downtown area anyway. Not that in this particular town it was a big downtown, but anyway. He asked me if I was going to go to this party, and I told him, I said, no, I usually don't do anything on Friday nights. It's always been my, if you want to call it, tradition, just to chill out on Friday nights and Saturdays. That's the end of my week, 7 days. Yeah, I'm relaxing. Well, he wanted to talk to me, so he insisted that I show up. So I said, okay, for you, I'll do that. Went to the restaurant. They were giving us food and a limited amount of drinks for free. And there was a dance room in the back, which I never saw the inside of. But he wanted to talk. So we had something to eat, and then we went over to the bar, and we sat down, had one beer each. And he told me the following, basically. He says, I have a daughter that's 5 years old. My wife and I, we live in an apartment building. Now, this guy is a confessed skinhead, and he's wearing a white power t-shirt while we're talking, and I'm sitting there with him, and I'm just kind of looking around going, I'm not afraid, but I'm just kind of wondering who's looking at this, because I've never been in this situation before. He thought I was afraid, and he says, don't worry about it. He says, if any of the people that I hang around with see me talking to you, they'll come after me, not you. And if you think about it, this kind of sounds familiar with what's going on with ISIS, but that comes later in the show. ISIS being, if you're not part of our group, we will kill you too, unless you join in with us. Anyhow, he continued telling me about his daughter and his wife, and he noticed his daughter playing. He says, I noticed her playing with one of the girls that lives in the same apartment complex, and it's a little black girl. And he says, I'm standing there noticing that these kids are playing with each other, and their commonality is, hey, you're a kid just like me, let's have some fun. And he says, I started learning that hatred, the hatred that I have, was something that was taught to me. It's not something that we're born with. We continued our conversation for a little bit longer, and then we went home to our separate homes. A few weeks later, roughly about 3 weeks later, I came into work, and I was looking for him, and he wasn't there. Now, this guy, being of German heritage, lived up to the stereotype of just being on time, being punctual, everything right down to the T. So for him not to be there the whole day and nobody said anything about it, I asked somebody, one of his friends that he hung around with a lot, I said, whatever happened to him? How come he's not here today? Reply was, oh, he quit. And my reply was, what? Well, after all, he and I had become friends, at least somewhat so, in the workplace. And they told me that, yeah, he'll be in today to pick up his final paycheck and to finalize all the paperwork. He'll probably talk to you then. I said, yeah, make sure he doesn't leave before I talk to him. I just wanted to find out where he was going, what was up, and why he was quitting. And lo and behold, he did come in, and he went and spoke to a few people, and before he went in to sign his papers, he came over to me. He says, don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you when I'm finished with all this. And I said, okay, no problem. When he finished, he found me, and he asked me, hey, can I talk to you in the hallway? I said, sure. Turned off the phones, got up, and went with him into the hallway where we spoke for a little while. What he told me surprised me, because all I did was just befriend the guy and just talk to him when he wanted to talk. What he told me was, I quit because of you. And again, what? Why are you quitting because of me? He says, well, it's nothing negative. He says, the end result is that I saw what was going on with my daughter and with her friends, and I realized that, yes, I was taught hatred. And because you showed me that I can be accepted for me by anybody, he says, I wanted to give my daughter and any other children that I may have in the future a chance to grow up knowing what they're born with, which is love. I don't want them to grow up knowing hatred. He says, I see how they play together. My little daughter and a black girl in the neighborhood, we're in the apartment building, and they don't notice anything different other than, you're my same age, and we're girls, let's play. So that's what he wants. He wanted to have his children, or his child, to continue with. They don't want to teach hatred. Hatred of skin color, hatred of race, hatred of religious beliefs, and all those negatives that a lot of us experience, whether we're receiving it or giving it, or some of us just witness it. So he says, I quit because I'm going into an 18-month deprogramming center to be deprogrammed from all these hatreds and all these intolerances that I was taught. He said, and I have an uncle who's going to pay $3,000 to have all of these tattoos laser removed. He says, so it's just that I wanted you to know that because you accepted me for me, and you weren't afraid of the tattoos and the white power t-shirts and all of that, he says, because you accepted me, I can see that there is good out there. Well, it bothers me to kind of tell that part of it, because I feel that sometimes that I'm actually just patting myself on the back, and that's not it. Because even as we gave each other that brotherly hug before he left, I went back to my desk and turned on the phone, getting ready to do phone calls, and I couldn't do it. I turned the phone back off because tears were just rolling down my face. And I just offered thanks and just said, just one time in this universe, I had actually seen what it's like just to be kind to someone, and it came back, and it was told to me that because of my influences on him, he became a better person. In the following video, it's a clip from the movie The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, written by Douglas Adams, which used to be a BBC radio program. This is just a little clip that you probably know if you've seen the movie, and it's just asking a great big computer about what is the meaning of life. I think you'll find this interesting.
Many millions of years ago, a race of hyper-intelligent, pan-dimensional beings got so fed up with the constant bickering about the meaning of life that they commissioned two of their brightest and best to design and build a stupendous supercomputer to calculate the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Oh, deep thought. We want you to tell us the answer.
The answer to what?
The answer to life, the universe, everything. We'd really like an answer. Something simple.
I have to think about that. Return to this place in exactly 7.5 million years.
Is it finished? Oh, no, there's more. There's more. They go back.
What, 7.5 million years later?
That's right. They do.
Deep thought. Do you have
An answer for you? Yes, but you're not going to like it.
It doesn't matter, we must know it.
All right. The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is... "42.
42?
Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
But it was the question. The ultimate question. Of everything.
That's not a question. Only when you know the question will you know what the answer means.
Give us the ultimate question then.
I can't. But there is one who can. A computer that will calculate the ultimate question. A computer of such infinite complexity that life itself will form part of its operational matrix. And you yourselves shall take on new, more primitive forms and go down into the computer to navigate its 10-million-year program. I shall design this computer for you, and it shall be called...
Well, the end of that little segment is, it doesn't say it in that segment, even in the movie, but what you come to find out at the end of the movie is that and this computer will be called Earth. Earth is the experiment of what will humanity be? What is the answer to everything? What is the purpose of life? And I don't know if the purpose of life is death, because we seem to be hell-bent on actually killing each other, and it seems to be our history. We love to kill each other if somebody doesn't agree with or conform to the way that we think it ought to be. So let's ask you, how well do you know history? How well do you know ancient history? How well do you know even relatively current history? Let's take a look. Now, I'm going to say something, and if you're an atheist or someone who's definitely negative on religion, okay, fine. I'm not coming from a religious point of view. I am coming from a biblical, which for some people may be the same thing, but I'm not talking about it from a religious point of view. Let's take a look at a biblical history just in a short way of looking at it, because we've found, if you're honest about it, there are a great deal of text that shows that biblical history actually mirrors secular history. In other words, what archaeologists and others have found from other texts, it's pretty much the same. Okay? The victors always tell the story, so fine. Anyway, But the point I'm coming from is not from talking about a creator and whatnot. It's just, hey, what was it like before the flood? We were told that mankind had just gone into a very selfish way of life. If they didn't have it, they would steal it from each other. They were doing all sorts of things in their own societies. We won't get into the details about it, but I'm actually hoping to get, I've put out a couple of emails asking some university professors to come on and talk about how life works in cycles. Have not received a response from that yet, so if you know of one, definitely have them contact me, because I'd like to talk about that on the show. Now, after the flood, it was recorded, at least in biblical history, that Abraham just saw that everybody was giving, well, it had pretty much regressed into what the flood was all about in the first place. People were eating anything and everything to survive. It was causing havoc with health. He also noticed, at least in his ancient area, which was basically Persia, they were Persians. They got into polytheism, which was worshiping several different gods at the same time, whatever the case may be. We see that in Roman and Greek history, with Hellenism, with Mithraism. Zoroastrianism came from Persia, and all of these little things. And they were looking at it from a polytheistic way. In other words, there's a god over rain, there's a god over the earth. Take a look at Greek history, okay? The Greek gods, and the god of thunder, the god of war, the god of this and that. Anyhow, Abraham just kind of noticed, there's a longer story that goes into it, but I won't go into that now, and possibly ever on this show. But at any rate, Abraham, through deduction, just said, there's only one God. There has to be only one, because somebody has to be in charge, in short. I'm paraphrasing here. And there's got to be a better way of life, which came up with understanding what kosher means. Kosher just means fit, for those who didn't understand this. But it's fit to eat. And just eating any old animal did not and does not work for the human health. And if your health is bad, how are you actually expected to live a better life? And learning to take peace and make peace an everlasting way. Of course, now, just going in, since we're going into that, and some people would probably go, well, what's going on with Israel and the Palestinians in the Middle East? And it's always been a thing within Judaism, if you actually study the text. It is to live peacefully with your neighbors, but if they're going to kill you, you make sure you have the best defense, which sometimes is the best offense, to stop your enemies from killing you. It's not always waiting for the first punch. It's, hey, we understand, so we're going to go in and solve the problem before it gets started. Anyhow, I digress here just a little bit. So, with all this being said, now I want to start this with an expression or a quotation that I've used on the show a few times. And it comes from Frank Herbert, who is the author of Dune. And this quote that I really love from him is, beliefs can be manipulated. Knowledge is dangerous. Because I say that because we see in life how people have certain beliefs, whether they be religious beliefs or they're just community beliefs, secular beliefs, and they in turn become something that somebody else can manipulate. We see that in politics. We see this in advertising for corporations, advertising and marketing, and they're always trying to convince you that you need more, need more, need more. You should buy this. And the adage always is, be the first of your friends to do this. They even use this in I think it's Facebook. Be the first of your friends to like this. It's like, who cares about my friends? I like it because I like it. It has nothing to do with somebody else. I like it because it has a benefit for me, whether it's just purely enjoyable, music, or if it's a product or service that serves my needs and desires. But this is advertising and marketing, always telling you what you should do, how you should be. And, these are your beliefs that you need to be first, or you need to be out there, out front. And these are beliefs. The knowledge is, hey, do I need this? Do I want this? Do I enjoy it, or do I dislike it? Or these are things that we need to consider, along with peace, love, and hatred, and intolerance. Which one is serving me, and why? So let's continue on. Shortly in looking back in time, shortly after, but actually it was thousands of years later, Christianity comes along, and it eventually, 300 years after its foundation, becomes not only a religion, but it becomes a political force within the Roman Empire, which was the beginning of the Roman Catholic Church. Well, what we consider now is the Roman Catholic Church, because it started out as the Catholic Church, Catholic meaning universal in Latin, and it was a combination, and still is, and I learned this from a Catholic priest at DePaul University a couple of decades ago actually, who was saying Catholic means universal, and he put on the board a list of all the religions that of that day of its inception was included in its inception. Zoroastrianism, Hellenism, Mithraism, and the list was quite extensive. And he says this is what Christianity is today. It is a combination of all of this, because even if you think about it, Protestantism, the only thing that separates Protestantism from Catholicism is as Martin Luther did, which says, look, I don't need to confess my sins to another man. I can do that direct with God. So that's the only difference between Lutheranism and Catholicism, if you take a look at it. And everybody else that's a Protestant, all the 3,000 different denominations of Protestantism, is basically the same, just little differences. And as a matter of fact, to paraphrase George Orwell, the author of 1984, if you really want to be rich, and as a byline, and to be an influence, you need to start your own religion. And one of his friends actually did so. And I won't mention the name of the religion, because that group has a tendency to like to come out and sue people. But his friend was L. Ron Hubbard. You figure out from the rest from there. So, but going back to my thought here, is that Christianity plunged us into the Dark Ages because they wanted you to think in a certain way, and if you didn't do it their particular way, you could be excommunicated, which I didn't understand that because I didn't grow up as a Catholic. But I didn't understand what excommunication meant. Okay, I knew it meant being thrown out of the church, or you're bad listed or blacklisted within the church. But when you have a religion or anything that governs your life to the extent of, we don't like what you're doing, and we're going to excommunicate you, which is blacklisting you and the rest of your particular world, which was like in Europe, says, oh, you've been excommunicated from the church, we cannot do business with you, we cannot trade with you, you're pretty much just... I'll draw the similarity of the radicals of Islam who are saying, if you don't do it our way, even though you are Muslim, we will kill you. And we're seeing this, unfortunately, in YouTube, and seeing these recorded, I've seen many of them in YouTube, where they're actually showing you pulling the person's head back with their hair and slicing through their neck and removing their head. I've seen enough of that. I don't want to see any more of that. But this was what the early Christian Catholic Church was about. If you don't agree with us, you don't do it our way, we will do all sorts of bad things to you. Okay? And you're not coming under the protection of the church, which was then influencing all the governments of Europe. Anyhow, so with this, and then the Crusades, and then 1400 years ago, here we have the start of Islam. And through some of the history I've read on there, actually the prophet of Islam actually supposedly started off very peacefully and lovingly, but people of his time and era didn't want to hear that part, and he started adapting to some of the ways of the ways that people were living at that time. So, in other words, to get his religion going, he went from, I'm very loving and peaceful, want this way, and people are going, so he allowed some of that, of their influences, to become part of his religion. That's the history that I have studied and learned, so I'm only quoting or paraphrasing what I have learned from that. Let's see. Now, I'm going to take a short break right here, and I'll be right back, and we'll continue on with this thought. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Do you need a website or a webmaster for your business or hobby? A wordsmith for a research paper, or for a script, an article, or for a language translator? Do you need an audio or visual project created or edited? Contact K-Wave 6 Productions at www.kwave6productions.tk for all your website, writing, audio, and visual needs. Our rates are competitive and our services are excellent. That's K-Wave 6 Productions at www.kwave6productions.tk or email us at info@kwave6productions.tk.
Hello, this is Chad C. Meek, executive producer of Giant Rock the Movie, the greatest UFO story ever told. You are listening to the K-Wave 6 radio show with Kirk Spencer.
In this final segment of the show, I may be running over an hour, I don't know, but I don't want to make it too long. In this final segment, I do want to bring up something that is actually affecting us today, and we're going back to what I was talking about in the previous segment, which was how much do you know of your own history? We're talking about your own history being the world as a place for history. Now, we know about Christianity and its crusades and how that affected the inhabitants of the Middle East at that time. Part of what I want to get into, because after Christianity and their crusades fairly much slowed down, I don't know if it had ended by that time, was the rise of Islam. And Islam started with their own area, their own regional area, which was Arabia and the east coast of the Mediterranean. Then they went east into Persia and Iraq, which we call nowadays, well, Persia was Iraq and Iran. Then it went into northern Africa, and it went into southern Europe, and we know a lot about that from even just how the story of Dracula came about in Romania. It also went into Spain, was threatening, and actually did go into France for a little while, and then was defeated and pushed back into Spain, and Spain lived with it for a while, and, well, we're going to get into that in a little bit. But how did Islam actually spread so quickly? Actually, it took Catholicism actually a longer period of time in comparison to sweep through Europe than it took Islam to spread through the area that they did back in their day. And part of it is, and I'm going to put in text where you can find, not text, but links to this in the blog, and probably even in the YouTube video in their description section. So I'll put in the links that I'm using here so you can go see them for yourself. As a friend of mine usually says it in his daily videos, everything that he gives will be given in links, and is publicly available to all who choose to read. Now, this particular one is just a summary. I didn't pull up online Quran, and you have to read it in Arabic to understand it all. I'm just going by what we as English speakers and readers can understand. If you understand Arabic, fine, you read it for yourself. But I'm going to take the summary that is written here. The Quran contains at least 109 verses that call Muslims to war with non-believers for the sake of Islamic rule. Note the words there, Islamic rule. Not religion, rule. Some are quite graphic, with commands to chop off heads and fingers and kill infidels wherever they may be hiding. Muslims who do not join the fight are called hypocrites and warned that Allah will send them to hell if they do not join the slaughter. Unlike nearly all of the Old Testament verses of violence, the verses of violence in Quran are mostly open-ended, meaning that they are not restrained by the historical context of the surrounding text. They are part of the eternal, unchanging world of Allah, and just as relevant or subjective as anything else in the Quran. The context of violent passages is more ambiguous than might be expected of a perfect book from a loving God. However, this can work both ways. Most of today's Muslims exercise a personal choice to interpret their holy book's call to arms according to their own moral preconceptions about justifiable violence. Apologists cater to their preferences with tenuous arguments that gloss over historical fact and generally do not stand up to scrutiny. Still, it is important to note that the problem is not bad people, but bad ideology. Unfortunately, there are very few verses of tolerance and peace to abrogate or even balance out the many that call for non-believers to be fought and subdued until they either accept humiliation, convert to Islam, or killed. Muhammad's own marital legacy and that of his companions, along with the remarkable stress on violence found in the Quran, have produced a trail of blood and tears across world history. To Quran, I'm just going to quote this one here. Now, that was just read from what is written in the website. there's just this one quote, because he's quoting pretty much all 109 that he's found, or she found, in the Quran. So I'm just going to give the first one. Quran 2, 191 to 193. Quote, "And kill them wherever you find them, and turn them out from where they have turned you out. And al-fitma, disbelief, is worse than killing. But if they desist, then lo, Allah is forgiving and merciful. And fight them until there is no more fitna, disbelief and worshipping of others along with Allah, and worship is for Allah alone. But if they cease, let there be no transgression except against Zalimun, the polytheist and wrongdoers, etc." This is translated, or translation is from the Noble Quran. The historical context of this passage is not defensive warfare, since Muhammad and his Muslims had just relocated to Medina and were not under attack by their Meccan adversaries. In fact, the verses urge offensive warfare in that Muslims are to drive Meccans out of their own country, which they later did. The use of the word persecution by some Muslim translators is thus disingenuous. The actual Muslim word for persecution, I'm not going to even try to read that word, and oppression, variation of ZLM, do not appear in the verse. The actual Arabic comes from fitna, which can mean disbelief or the disorder that results from unbelief or temptation. Taken as a whole, the context makes clear that violence is being authorized until religion is for Allah. That is, unbelievers desist in their unbelief. It goes on from there. Now, the only thing that I say about people and religion is, if you truly want peace and love in the world, what is your religion teaching you? What are the precepts of your religion? Is your life in this religion, is it promoting peace and love and happiness, not only for you, but for everyone else who thinks differently? Or are you actually promoting and pushing conformity in the world, which means there is no ability to think beyond the pale, to imagine a different and better life? Is it just that your way of life is the only way, and death is the results for anyone who chooses to say, "I'm sorry, but I don't want your way of life"? Now, I'm not going to point the finger at Islam. I'm talking about radical Islam, because in my lifetime I've grown up with, and still have friends, hopefully I'll have still these same friends after this broadcast, that are Muslims. Two friends that I knew here that live in Iran. Very nice people. And the woman used to like to hang out with me because our cultures were similar, or are similar. I've grown up with people that in the area I grew up in the world, there were a lot of people that were that are Muslim, and they're just down to earth, nice people. I've met a few who, when I did see them actually reading a Quran, I made some comments about it, just as a nice comment, okay, you're Muslim, and they wanted to start with their, if you will, trying to convert me through or to Islam, and telling me how much their beliefs are true versus anything that I may believe, because I've noticed proselytizers generally do not ask you questions. It's all about telling you about what is better and what is, what their life and what their beliefs are, and they're better than anything that you could ever have. And that's one of those things that one Christian minister friend of mine actually asked. He says, I don't understand why there is such a hatred in Christianity. Well, Christianity, being a proselytizing group of people, generally never ask you questions about what do you believe and how do you see life and so on and so forth. It's about what I have to teach you, what I have to tell you, and it's not important what you believe, it's important that you listen to me. And that, from my own experience and from friends of mine that have had similar experiences from different walks of life and different beliefs, whatever, that's the same, pretty much the same story, just in their own words, that I'm tired of people coming to me and telling me that my life will be better if I do this, that, or another, and they don't know the happiness and joy and the peace that I've found wherever I am. Whatever that belief in, whatever carries that person through and makes them a very loving and happy person, that's theirs. And they have a, I will say, a connection with our Creator. I say Creator because for people these days, when you say God, people just kind of like, oh no, we're going to have a religious talk again. No, I'm not going to go there, and I don't want to offend anybody. But on the other side, if you're offended by me saying Creator, then think about it from this point of view. He was the Creator. So if you have a problem with me saying Creator, then look at yourself again and go, why am I upset that this guy is saying Creator instead of God? Okay? I admit that God is a Creator, but I'm not going to get into a religious debate about it. Because right now, even though we are talking about religion, I want it to be understood. I'm wanting you, the listener, to take a look at it from a different point of view. Because with Islam, they took their writings and their sayings and went from being, well, Muhammad took it and says, well, we're going to go out and we're going to convert people or we're going to kill them. And they did this throughout all of the Middle East, Northern Africa, and into Southern Europe. What was the result of that? Well, the result of that was the papacy came up and wrote what is called the Bull Romanus Pontifex. And I'm going to read a part of that as we draw to a close here. And I'll put the link up here so you can read this for yourself. And just part of the, it's too long to read here, and I wouldn't want to do it any more than I read 109 verses out of the Quran, talking about conversion or death. Anyway, the introduction to this is the kingdoms of Portugal and Castile had been jockeying for position and possession of colonial territories along the African coast for more than a century prior to Columbus's discovery of lands in the western seas. On the theory that the Pope was an arbitrator between nations, each kingdom had sought and obtained papal bulls at various times to bolster its claims, on the grounds that its activities served to spread Christianity. The Bull Romanus Pontifex is an important example of the papacy's claim to spiritual lordship of the whole world and of its role in regulating relations among Christian princes and between Christians and unbelievers, in quotation marks or parentheses, heathens and infidels. Sounds a little familiar? Anyway, the bull became the basis for Portugal's latter claim to lands in the New World, a claim which is countered by Castile and the bull inter caetera, is Latin, so pardon me, I don't speak Latin, nor did I study it, in 1493. An English translation of Romanus Pontifex is reproduced below and is published in European treatises bearing on the history of the United States and its dependencies to 1648. Francis Gardner Davenport, editor, Carnegie Institution of Washington, 1917, Washington, D.C., etc., etc. Now, the paragraphs that I'm going to pull up in particular are the 4th and 5th, and I don't really intend to read them all. I think I might read the 4th one in its totality, but the 5th one I'm only going to read part of it. 4th one goes, moreover, since some time ago it had come to the knowledge of the said Infante, that never, or at least not within the memory of men, had it been customary to sail on the ocean sea toward the southern and eastern shores, and that it was so unknown to us Westerners that we had no certain knowledge of the peoples of those parts, believing that we would best perform his duty to God in this manner, if by his effort and industry that sea might become navigable as far as the Indians who are said to worship the name of Christ, and that thus he might be able to enter into relation with them and to incite them to aid the Christians against the Saracens and other such enemies of faith, and might also be able forthwith to subdue certain gentile or pagan peoples living between, who are entirely free from infection by the sect of the most impious Mahomet, which was the ancient word for Muhammad, and to preach and cause to be preached to them the unknown but most sacred name of Christ, strengthened, however, always by the royal authority. He has not ceased for 25 years past to send almost yearly an army of the peoples of the said kingdoms with the greatest labor, danger, and expense, in very swift ships called caravels, to explore the sea and coast lands toward the south and the Antarctic pole. Okay, I'm not going to get into the rest of that paragraph, but you get the idea here that the papacy is saying, go out to the whole world, in short form, and fight those who are against Christianity, which is sounding pretty much the same as Islam, early Islam anyway. Actually, it hasn't changed much, but there's people within Islam who are the moderates, and I have a challenge for moderate Islam right after I say this. Now, we see that because of Muhammad, the Catholic Church decides to fight it. So this was taken, as it's even written here in other places, that it became not only the Catholic Church's way of fighting the infidels and those of Muhammad, it became something that is still practiced even to this day. This is how and why when Columbus went to the New World, which is now the Americas, how a world full of natives, people that were living here before the Europeans came, were around 6 million people, and after World War II there were only roughly 800,000 of them left. If you're not a believer, we're going to kill you. And if you believe, you can be a part of our civilization. And unfortunately, even as the natives of the Americas will say, if you had learned how we lived, the water would still be pure, the air would still be pure, we could breathe freely, we wouldn't have our allergy or respiratory problems, and we could still drink from our rivers and streams without filtration. But we go into this and we see, pardon me for the diversion, but I am actually going to go here this time. I have often wondered about corporations and money. And the way that our current system is that if you have a company and you put it on the stock exchange, you make it available for people to invest. People can invest and they can get a higher return on their money. But how do they do that? How do you get a higher return? Because you keep doing something that draws people to buy from your products or your services and your profits continue to grow. But as you're doing this, you're tearing up the earth, both as air and as land, to get these profits. And it's not so much about quality anymore as it is about earning the money. I want money. And this is even part of the reason for the 1929 stock exchange, the collapse of the economy, was everybody was just being lazy and just putting their money in and letting somebody else do the work, and it was just dead money just sitting in the market, just going, here, we're going to put it there, and there's more of an expectation for these companies to perform, and when they couldn't perform, well, you know the history better than I do, maybe, I don't know. Anyhow, getting back to the story here, I'm actually going to, there is one other thing that I do want to bring up, and this is a current article. This is written by the World Post, which is a partnership of the Huffington Post and Berggruen Institute on Governance. I will put the link in there as well. The title of this is Middle East Time Bomb. The real aim of ISIS is to replace the Saud family as the new emirs of Arabia. And how did it actually get started? Well, I actually moved this thing, so hold on just a moment here. Here it is. Okay. This is coming under it's kind of a subtitle, large letters, but it's down into the article. The Saudi tail has wagged Britain and the U.S. in the Middle East. The one paragraph that I'm going to really get into is this one. It talks about the history of modern Islam through Arabia. It says, paradoxically, it was a maverick British official who helped embed the gene into the new state. The British official attached to Aziz was one Harry St. John Philby, the father of the MI6 officer who spied for the Soviet KGB, Kim Philby. He was to become King Abd al-Aziz's close advisor, having resigned as a British official, and was until his death a key member of the ruler's court. He, like Lawrence of Arabia, was an Arabist. He was also a convert to Wahhabi Islam and known as Sheikh Abdullah. So, in this one case, it kind of makes me wonder, do you really understand why there are so many Muslims that have moved to Great Britain? And now they're actually fighting against Great Britain. And on a weird note, the European countries, France, Great Britain, and a few others, are actually telling their native citizens, people that were born and raised there from generations back, telling them, hey, don't mess with those who came here from Islamic countries. Don't mess with the Muslims. And they're making their own people second-class citizens. But why? Is it a point of guilt? Or what? I haven't figured that part out. But here's the challenge. We look at the world and we're seeing through newspaper articles, through news reporting. Now we know that the media isn't the best for finding out information, but they're telling some stuff here that makes sense. And we're seeing this in the Quran and other writings, and we're seeing that the papal bull just saying we can fight against them is still in effect. So are we headed for a World War III? And my challenge is to those who I know and those who I don't know that are moderate Muslims. And I know that there are probably a great deal of you out there that are saying, look, I don't agree with this, but if they're coming for you just as they're coming for everybody else, we're talking about the radicals within Islam, if they're coming for you and saying, hey, you're a hypocrite if you're not going to join us in this holy jihad against everybody else, and we have to make the world a place for Allah, so if they won't convert, we will have to kill them, which what they're doing in Syria and other parts, so you can see this in the news. Are you going to go with them, or are you actually now saying, hey, we have to stop this? Because if nothing else, one of the movies that came out, I believe it was in the late 1990s or early 2000s, this movie with Denzel Washington, Tony Ayoub, and Bruce Willis was the general. Islam made such a rise in the United States that and it became fanatical, which we're seeing with radical Islam, is that there were those who were moderates, and then there were those who were the radicals. And the U.S. couldn't tell the difference in this movie between a moderate and a radical, and they rounded up everybody that in the movie was Muslim, and they put them into places like arenas, or not arenas, but stadiums. There's not much difference, just different different names for it in different times. But they put them in stadiums and wired them off, and they kept them there until the end of the movie. But the point is, the radicals are causing fear, and fear will eventually turn into anger. And when anger and fear combine, there is going to be a war that comes out of this. So my challenge is for those who are moderate Muslims, what are you doing to help the non-Muslims understand, hey, I'm standing up for being just one who, I'm happy in this culture, I'm happy with my religion, I have no problem with your religion, as long as you're understanding that you don't take everything literally. Okay? So the other side of this is, do you really want peace? And do you want peace for everyone? Do you want people to have the ability to say, look, I'm good with my faith, my beliefs, or for those who don't have beliefs, I'm good with my lack of beliefs, I'm good. And can I just let everybody else live their life according to their own will? Because people don't have to answer to each other. I don't have to answer to you for my beliefs, and you don't have to answer to me for your beliefs. I have to answer to something and someone higher and above me. For me, it's my Creator. That's who I have to answer to. I don't have to answer to you. You don't have to answer to me. For those who have even recently tried to persuade me to see their way of life, as I've told them, first, you never asked me any questions. You never asked me where I am. You never understood what I know and whether I can dispute this or not. But when I do try to talk, you try to talk over me, to saying, shut up and just listen to me. I'm sorry, that is not nice. That is not peaceful, and does not make me even want to listen to you. I have no problems in listening. I will have a discussion, because through a discussion I can understand. But if you're coming over to me and telling me, This is what you have to believe. This is how you have to believe it. This is how you have to practice your life and live your life. In other words, total conformity to what I'm telling you. We have a problem. Especially, I have a problem with what you're trying to do with me. Can we sit down and talk about our differences? Can we come to an understanding? Why do we have to continue in this world with, I have the right way, and if you don't, I'm going to kill you? Haven't we seen enough of this in our lifetime? It spread throughout Europe in 2 different waves that way. It came to the Americas and did the same thing with the natives. And then now we continue this thought even with each other. And now we have radical Islam coming along and stirring up, because people from Islam have been in the United States, Canada, and other places around the world for years, and I mean decades. I don't know how long, but I know it's been around for decades. And these people have never been a problem. I knew as a kid, my father used to say, oh, this area is, there's Muslims that live in this area. And I got to know some of them, and it was always a nice relationship. And I didn't try to persuade them, they didn't try to persuade me, and everybody was peaceful. And that's the way I grew up, knowing about Islam. Now that we're into this age, in the early 2000s, we have radical Islam rising up, and they're causing a problem. And now they want to kill everybody. It's not just Europeans coming over and killing the natives of the Americas. Now it's Islam coming and going, we're going to kill them and everybody else that lives here that doesn't conform to our way. Where is the peace? Where is the love? When are we going to stop warring over beliefs? Beliefs are manipulated. Where is the knowledge? Where is the humanity in all of this, where we say, hey, you can believe the way you want. I can believe the way that I want. I have to answer to my God, you have to answer to yours. Stop pushing on me. Can we love? What is unconditional love? At least the way that I look at it is, I accept you as a human being first. Your beliefs are second. You are a human being. So I can and will love you as a human being. I may not choose the way that you live, but that doesn't mean that I have to tell you that you're wrong or you have to do something because now it's the right thing to do. If you love the earth, if you love other people, then accept the earth was given to us as a place to live. We have no place to escape to. Even if you get into a space shuttle, go up to one of those international space stations, it can hold a few, and if the earth dies, where are you going to go from the international space station? You lost all your food, you lost everything that you can replenish, you no longer have a place. So, you can't escape. Mars has yet to be, as far as we know, there's conspiracy stories about Mars, but even if we could get to Mars, the whole population can't get there. If you want to go by this conspiracy thought, only I hate to use this word, only the elites would be able to go there. So the rest of us are going to be stuck here on Mother Earth, fighting with each other. And why? Because we don't really understand what unconditional love is. Accept each other as a person. The belief systems, let's have a dialogue, let's have a discussion. And even if we just go, okay, I'm going to hold on to my beliefs and you hold on to yours, can we at least live peacefully together, somehow, some way? Because you can't convince me, no matter what your religion is, you're saying, my religion is of peace, but you're going out and attacking people. That's not peaceful. That's not unconditional love. That is conformity to my way of doing things. I just used basically 3 examples from the major three in the world. But there are other religions that actually are more peaceful than at least the last two in the world, and they seem to be being attacked as well. And I'm not talking about just from Islam. So, people, the thought for the day, the positive thought is, if you can understand and accept unconditional love, which is accepting the person and not the beliefs. Going back even to the ancient biblical times of, if somebody comes to harm you, protect yourself. You don't have to wait to be attacked. But there is no need to die, but there is no need to go out and aggressively attack these people unless you know that they are coming to attack you. But then again, maybe, to a certain degree, this is justifiable revenge for other people's, I'm not going to say ours, because it's been other people's interference with another culture. I don't know. I am not the creator. I have not created any pattern for the future called prophecy. I don't know. There are things that I have to accept. There are things that I can change. Sounds like the Alcoholics Anonymous prayer. But the point is, you do what you can. Love everybody as a human being. That's your unconditional love. Come to a dialogue. Come to understanding each other. Even if you have to just go, look, okay, you stay over there, I'll stay over here. We can go into each other's territory, buy, sell, visit, etc. But just leave that part of you that is offensive to me out of your visitations in my area. And I'll do the same thing with you. And we can get along. We'll see what the future holds. But coming to say you're going to believe like me or die, that is definitely not peace. I don't care what faith, what religion, what denomination you come from. That is not peace, and we will never have peace as long as that is your idea or your goal in life, is to make everybody believe like you do. Let it be, because if nothing else, for those who are proselytizing, your creator, your God, whatever, is the one who is in charge, and that if you even look from a Christian point of view, God will soften or harden the heart of the person that you're talking to. So let it be. Let your life be the influence for other people. If what you want is peace, be peace. If you want is anger and malice and conformity, that's what you're going to give. That's what you're going to get in return. My advice, my suggestion for today, my positive thought, again, be what you want the world to be. Yeah, I know, it comes from Gandhi, but be that. Live what you want the world to be. Let your light shine. Let you be the one thing that makes a person go, I was brought up in hatred, but you accepted me for who and what I am today. So that gives me the faith and the belief that I can change and I can be a better person. With that, I wish everyone well, and if you've listened to this whole program, thank you for being here, and I hope this helps you in your daily life. Until next time, be well. Thank you for being a part of our listening audience. Stay informed of what's happening at K-Wave 6 Radio at www.kwave6radio.tk. That's www.kwave6radio.tk. All the best for you and yours.